new office was housed in an old building located in Boston, Massachusetts. With plenty of natural light and space to grow, it seemed like a perfect fit when this boy's father purchased the space in October 2014. However, as the man's son helped him settle into his new workplace, he made a peculiar discovery: an odd section of flooring with a handle, hinges, and an open invitation to see what was hiding below. "We hadn't seen this when originally checking the place out," wrote Lou Morrow. Lou Morrow, a budding graphic novelist, heeded the advice of one of his idols, poet and essayist Waldo Emerson, who writes, "Be an opener of doors, for such as come after thee." When he discovered this curious-looking trapdoor, he had to venture further. After he descended the stairs, he arrived in a grim, dilapidated basement, where a clutter of old pipes and paperwork made the pathway nearly impassable. The brick-built passageways extended in either direction, shrouded in darkness. Amidst the piles of trash, he discovered boxes of old paperwork, moldy books and rolled-up scrolls. Naturally, the curious boy's mind immediately filled with questions. Who did these belong to? What were they for? And why had they been discarded in the dark, damp recesses of the basement? One document that he found on the floor was a torn and water-damaged blueprint. Lou Morrow had no idea what mystery structure was mapped out in the design. However, after closer inspection, he began to question whether the architect incorporated inverted pentagrams into the design. The passageways seemed to stretch out in a seemingly infinite manner. Lou Morrow proceeded deeper into the basement, avoiding hazards of rusty pipes and debris. Meanwhile, the passages receded into blackness. Undeterred, Lou Morrow traveled deeper and deeper into the musty space below his father's building. The low-ceiling pipes constrained him to duck, but what mystery lay on the other side of the passageway urged him forward. There was no going back now. The urban explorer inched down the passageway, avoiding all the hazards in his path. On his right, electric cables hung from the ceiling as if to recall the skeleton of some forgotten torture apparatus. Up ahead, meanwhile, the passage fell away to yet darker, tighter places. New passageways were marked by these impressive brick pillars. The labyrinthine stretched further out into the darkness, but the end of each passageway was unknown. But, like all good urban explorers, Lou Morrow had to go on. Clues began to add up for the young explorer. He found, marked with a warning in red, an insulated cable carried a shocking, pun intended, 13,800 volts, enough to wake the dead. It seems whoever inhabited these dark spaces required both an incredible amount of electricity and some light reading. On the floor, the young man found pages from a 1937 edition of the Boston Post, which published short stories, poetry and quaint cartoons about a character known as Modish Mitzi. In piles throughout the basement, rusted pipes lay like ribbons in the dirt. They seemed to suggest the dismemberment of some massive mechanical monster that once inhabited the area. The walls are dotted with holes far too small for a man, but more than large enough for cockroaches and other nasty creatures. The dungeon went on and on without end. Even in places blocked by debris, the pipes and cables extended deeper into the shadows. But where did they go? This old light bulb, caked in decades of dust, was another clue. The young adventurer was able to date it back to the 1950s. When Lou Morrow posted the image to Reddit and users asked if it still worked, he responded, "It's burned out, just like my soul." Suddenly, without warning, the journey was ended by a pile of lumber covered in rusty nails. It seemed to go a lot further, wrote Lou Morrow on Imgur. Possibly under the whole complex, but there was some timber in the way. It seems another trip is in order. Lou Morrow traversed the basement to return to the world above. So what did he determine about his dad's new workplace? "The office space is just a front now," he joked. "The dungeon will be the real attraction." The boy did manage to get his hands on a few souvenirs from his subterranean adventure. They were helpful in determining the time period the dungeon was last used. However, many questions still remained. Although the light bulb won't turn on, It did shape up to be a lovely souvenir. While he may have drawn some artistic inspiration from his dungeon voyage, Lumaro likely will not be satisfied. We're certain he'll be returning soon with heavy-duty gloves to see what's beyond that pile of timber.